And the big development, the US President dialed Indian Prime Minister to greet the Indian Prime Minister on his 75th birthday in a significant gesture seen as part of Washington's efforts to reset ties with New Delhi. Now, following this call, Prime Minister Modi thanked Trump on social media, who he referred to as his friend, for his greetings and said he, like the US leader, is fully committed to taking the US-India comprehensive and global partnership to new heights. The exchange came on the day negotiating teams from the US and India held discussions in New Delhi after a significant pause. A team of officials from the Office of the US Trade Representative, led by Chief Negotiator for the India-US Bilateral Agreement negotiations, Brendan Lynch, they held a meeting with Rajesh Agarwal, the Chief Negotiator on the Indian side, and his team. The meeting lasted for about 7 hours. Now, following those talks, India's Ministry of Commerce and Industry said that India and the US have decided to ramp up efforts to arrive at a trade deal, acknowledging the importance of bilateral trade between the two nations. It said that the discussions were forward-looking, covering various aspects of the trade deal. In a separate statement earlier, a US Embassy spokesperson said that Lynch had a positive meeting in Delhi with Agarwal to discuss next steps in the bilateral trade negotiations. India and the US have earlier held 5 rounds of negotiations for a trade deal. The proposed last round of talks with US in August was postponed in the backdrop of rising tensions between the two countries following US imposition of 50% tariff on India. Trump announced 25% tariffs on Indian goods in the month of July. And even as there were hopes of an interim India-US trade deal that would have otherwise helped avoid elevated tariffs. And then just a few days later, he imposed another 25% tariff, taking the total to 50% on India, citing India's continued imports of Russian oil, something India has been doing since 2022. Now, the 50% tariffs came into effect on the 27th of August, less than a month ago. Tuesday's meeting was yesterday. The meeting was not an official round of negotiations, but a meeting to discuss how to take the talks forward. Reports say the chief negotiators of both the countries have decided to continue the trade talks on a virtual mode. And our Assistant Editor for Foreign Affairs, Siddhant Sibal, tells us more on this.
First talks between Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the US President Donald Trump since Donald Trump imposed tariffs on India, 50% tariffs on India, of which 25% were primarily because India is importing Russian energy. But also both sides now picking up the pieces. We know that in past 2 weeks, there have been positive commentary by both the leaders, and this is now leading up to talks on trade issues. In fact, we know that on Tuesday, the assistant USTR was in Delhi for talks with his counterpart, paving way for larger trade talks, but essentially now focus on early conclusion of the trade pact. But the conversation between the two leaders is something that could give guidance to how both sides can conclude trade talks very early on. Siddhant Sibal for WION in New Delhi.